Imagine a piece of federal land, maybe a quiet patch of forest or an old government site, and then suddenly it's set aside for something really important in your community, maybe services for veterans. But how does that actually happen? Who decides? And, what are the rules and the responsibilities that come with it?
Today, we're doing a deep dive into, well, a really interesting piece of proposed legislation. It's H.R. 837. And this bill, it's all about a specific land transfer down in Arizona. Our mission here is to unpack it. We want to explore the details, understand the why behind it, and really figure out what it means, especially for the folks this land is meant to help. Try to break down that legal language into plain terms.
Absolutely. And what's great is we're working directly from the source. We've got the official text of H.R. 837, the Pleasant Valley Ranger District Conveyance to Gila County, Arizona bill, straight from the government publisher. So it gives us a direct look, at how these laws are actually put together. Okay, so let's start with the main idea, H.R. 837. What's it about at its core? Well, fundamentally, it would require the Secretary of Agriculture to hand over a specific piece of land. It's known as the Pleasant Valley Ranger District Administrative Site, and it would go to Gila County, Arizona. Sounds simple enough on the surface.
It does, but transferring federal land to local control, it's usually not quite that straightforward.
Yeah.
And this isn't just any random piece of land. It's currently part of the National Forest system. Specifically, it sits within the Tonto National Forest. What's really fascinating here is digging into why this happens, why federal land would shift to local hands, and importantly, the very specific conditions that almost always come attached.
And let's talk scale for a second. How big is this site? The bill mentions approximately 232.9 acres. That includes all the land, any buildings, improvements, everything. To give you a picture, that's roughly, 175 football fields? So yeah, pretty substantial area. It's generally shown on a map called the Pleasant Valley Admin Site Proposal, dated back in September 2021. So not a tiny plot at all. Okay, so who are the main players involved in making this happen? You've got the Secretary of Agriculture acting through the Chief of the Forest Service. And on the other side, Gila County, Arizona.
Right, and the bill is pretty firm about the transfer. It says if Gila County sends a written request within 180 days after the act becomes law, the secretary must convey it. All right, title and interest. So it's not really optional for the secretary at that point. It becomes mandatory once the county officially asks.
That mandatory language seems significant.
It really is. It signals a strong congressional push for this specific transfer, leaves less wiggle room for the agency.
And accuracy seems key here too, right? With federal land, you need clear boundaries. The bill mentions that map, but also says the secretary can correct minor errors. And the final, exact size and legal description, that gets nailed down by an official survey the secretary approves.
Exactly. Precision is crucial to avoid any disputes later on. They want those boundaries legally watertight.
Okay, let's get into the terms and conditions, the nitty-gritty. The bill says the land is conveyed without consideration.
Yeah.
It sounds like Gila County gets it for free.
Well, yes and no. Without consideration means they don't pay a purchase price for the land itself. That's true. But, and this is a big but, it doesn't mean it's cost-free for the county.
Ah, okay. So there are other costs involved.
Definitely. The bill is very clear. Gila County has to pay all costs associated with the actual conveyance process. Think about things like, well, those surveys we just mentioned. They have to pay for that. Any environmental analyses needed under federal law, that's on them too. Even things like studies required by the National Historic Preservation Act. The county fits the bill for all of it.
So the land is a gift, maybe, but wrapping it and getting it home costs money.
That's a good way to put it. The federal government shifts the procedural costs to the recipient.
And how is the transfer actually done, legally speaking? The bill specifies using a quitclaim deed. What does that mean in practice?
A quitclaim deed is basically the government saying, we're giving you whatever interest we have in this property, but we're not making any promises about it.
Yeah.
There are no warranties about the title history, potential claims, or crucially, environmental issues.
So it's a real take-it-as-is situation.
Exactly. Buyer beware, or in this case, recipient beware. And there are other protections for the U.S. government built in as well. It says the transfer is subject to valid existing rights. So if someone else has, say, an easement to cross the land, that likely stays. And it also mentions such other terms and conditions as the Secretary considers appropriate to protect the interests of the United States.
So more layers of protection for the federal side gives the Secretary some discretion.
Right. It allows flexibility to add conditions if needed to safeguard federal interests during handover. Gila County needs to do its homework, its due diligence.
And you mentioned environmental issues. Is there anything specific on that?
Yes, there is. The bill explicitly states the Secretary doesn't have to provide any kind of warranty under CERCLA.
That's the Superfund law, right? For hazardous waste cleanup.
That's the one. Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act.
Yeah.
So by saying no CERCLA warranty, it means if there's some past environmental contamination discovered later, the responsibility, the cost of cleanup, falls squarely on Gila County, the new owner.
Wow. Okay. So free land, but potentially significant future liability. That's a major consideration.
Yeah.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The purpose of this transfer. The bill has a very specific requirement for how the land must be used, right? It says the land shall be used by the county only for the purposes of serving and supporting veterans of the armed forces. So this isn't just, giving land to the county for general use. It's earmarked.
Precisely. And that's critical. This specific use requirement is really the heart of the matter. It ensures this significant asset, this land, is dedicated to benefiting a very specific group, veterans.
What could that look like on the ground? What kind of services?
Well, it could be quite broad. Maybe dedicated housing, job training programs, mental health support centers, maybe just a community space for veterans to connect. The key thing is that Gila County must use it only for serving and supporting veterans and their families. It makes sure this resource addresses a specific community need.
And what happens if the county, maybe years down the line, decides to use it for something else? Is there an enforcement mechanism?
Yes, there is. A pretty strong one, actually. It's called a reversion clause. The bill states that if the land is ever used in a way that's inconsistent with that core purpose of serving veterans, all the rights to the land can revert, meaning go back to the United States.
At the Secretary's discretion, it says.
Correct. The Secretary can decide to take the land back if the county doesn't uphold its end of the bargain regarding the use. It's a powerful way to ensure that dedicated purpose is honored long-term.
Okay, so where does this bill, H.R. 837, stand right now?
Yeah.
Is it law yet? Well, according to the record, it passed the House of Representatives back on February 5th, 2025. Then it went over to the Senate the next day, February 6th, and was referred to their Committee on Energy and Natural Resources.
So it's made progress past one chamber, but it's still very much in the legislative process. It needs Senate approval and then the president's signature to become law. So just to sort of wrap up the key points here, H.R. 837 is really a textbook example of how federal land can be specifically directed to meet a local need. We've seen this chunk of national forest land in Arizona targeted for transfer to Gila County. Not exactly for free, given the costs the county has to bear, like surveys and environmental checks. And critically, with that very clear mandate, it must be used to serve and support veterans.
Yeah, and that reversion clause really underscores the commitment.
It does. It ensures accountability.
So this whole deep dive into just one bill, H.R. 837, it really shines a light on how legislation can directly connect federal resources to local communities, specifically here for veterans and their families. It shows all the detailed steps, the conditions, the balancing act between, community benefit and protecting government interests.
It's a complex dance, transferring public assets like this.
Absolutely. So as you go about your week, maybe think about land use in your own area. Decisions made by Congress or even your local council, they really can shape what resources are available and for whom. It makes you wonder, right? What other underused federal sites or local assets might be out there, just waiting for the right legislative push to serve a vital need, like supporting those who've served our country? What might that process look like in your community?